So I'll just say again, welcome to everyone. It's great to see you, even if we are just on Zoom. I'm Dan Lambert, and I serve this congregation as minister. Our progressive, welcoming, inclusive, and judgment-free congregation is a liberal religious community of diverse and free-thinking individuals. UUFCC is a spiritual community where reason and social justice matter. As people who learn, love, share, and serve together, we welcome all into our family. We begin our service each week by singing an invitation to gather together, even as we are all scattered in many different places. So we invite you to stay muted, but sing together, enter, rejoice, and zoom in. And remember to clap your hands and make those motions. So let's sing together, enter, rejoice, and zoom in. I'd like to introduce today's worship associate, Lori Douglas, who is also our board president, and she has words for chalice lighting.
Good morning. I'm getting there. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Today's words for chalice lighting are from the Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom, who's a former worship and music resources director for UUA. He served in many congregations throughout the East Coast. I would ask you to hold your chalice lighting at home, and there'll be time after the affirmation where we can all do that together. In a UU sanctuary, in this UU sanctuary, people sing together. When we light our chalice, everyone focuses on the flame. Yet it is the paraffin of the candle, the cotton of the wick, the potassium chloride and sulfur of the match, and the oxygen in the air around us that makes the flame possible. We are not called to be a lone beacon on a hill. Rather, we are meant to work together so that we might together shine. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. So I invite you to recite our affirmation as we light the chalice. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another. I now invite you to take a moment, if you have a chalice at home that you would like to light, to do that at this time. Lori has opening words for us.
Here we go. In gathering together for this topic today, it became evident that the best words that I could find are actually words from famous people that we all, or that most of us know, who can say it much better than we can. First of all, Buddha. If you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your path. From the words of Desmond Tutu, do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of goods put together that overwhelm the world. From the words of Mahatma Gandhi, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And of course, Dr. Martin Luther King, if you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, that's wonderful too. But recognize that he who is the greatest among you shall be your servant. And that's a new definition of greatness. And this morning, the thing that I, Dr. Kane, like about it, by giving that definition of greatness, It means that everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love, and you can be that servant. And finally, in the words of Jimmy Carter, I have one life and one chance to make it count for something. My faith demands that I do whatever I can, wherever I can, whenever I can, for as long as I can, with whatever I have to try and make a difference. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Lori. Those are perfect opening words for the service today. I'd like to say a special welcome if you happen to be a visitor with us. If this is your first time, we certainly extend a greeting, even though we're virtually extending that on Zoom, the Zoom hand of fellowship. Maybe, I think I just made that up. It's difficult for us to know who's here visiting because we don't have a chance to see everyone in person like we typically would. So if you are a visitor or if this is your first time with us, we'd love to know who you are. And the way that we do that in our Zoom setting is by asking you to introduce yourself using the chat room feature. If you would like, we ask you to share your name and where you're from and maybe why you decided to join us or who invited you. That way we can get to know who you are and others can say hello and we get a chance to welcome you into our Zoom gathering today. So if you're a visitor or if this is your first time, we invite you to do that while we enjoy our opening song, which is a classic that most of you will probably know. It's the Bill Withers song, Lean on Me. And this is a live version, which I especially enjoy. So we invite you to sing along. Please stay muted, but sing out loud, Lean on Me.
Sometimes in our life, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride. If I have been, you need to borrow, for no one can feel those of your needs that you won't let show. Why you just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need
That was fantastic. And it was great to see the few windows where I could see some of you really enjoying that at home. As we go into member spotlight, we are highlighting someone today that you hear me talk about sometimes, but most of you probably haven't met or don't know a whole lot about. And that is, as I mentioned, a good reason to have a higher definition video camera for today, my wife, Tess. So let's learn a little bit more about Tess, and she can maybe be a little bit less of Dan's mystery wife and a real person. So come on, babe.
Hard to think of myself as a mystery person. I'm one of those people that is pretty much an open book, so it's hard to imagine that, but okay, I'll take on the role. Well, first of all, thanks, hubby, for inviting me to speak. So I grew up in a rural farm community, which actually turned out to be about 30 minutes away from my future husband, some 30 years down the road, but we didn't meet each other until we were in different places and different times, different spaces in our lives. But before I talk about my blissful marriage, let me talk about growing up a little bit. So growing up wasn't a lot of fun for me. We learned in my family that we were the others, the less thans, because of the side of the track we lived on, or the neighborhood we lived in, or what have you. My dad's work. And that has stuck with me through most of my adult years. But one of the biggest blessings I ever had in my life was my high school chemistry teacher. Her name was Mrs. Dean. And there is hardly a day that goes by that I don't think of her. She was so kind to take me under her wing, and my academic life turned around. That was in my 11th year of school. And from there, I turned into a chronic student. I am now currently working on my 6th degree. It is my doctorate, finally. I mean, I understand that's supposed to be a terminal degree, but don't tell Rev Dan that I'm thinking about one more thing after that. Just one more aspiration that I may want to complete. Most of my degrees are in medicine, but I also worked in a Master's of Theology degree, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Working in medicine, I am currently a nurse practitioner, and I specialize in adult psychiatry. And I do exactly what a psychiatrist does. I evaluate, diagnose, treat, prescribe medications, what have you. And I am super, super blessed to work from home. Blessed, maybe spoiled, to work from home. My patients, in fact, are back in Ohio, and I work for a community mental health center where the people I work with are just awesome.
Papers in front of the microphone.
Oh, one of those blunders. Apparently my paperwork here was in front of the microphone. I apologize if you couldn't hear much, but you didn't really miss a whole lot. Anyway, I work at a community mental health center in Ohio right now. All my patients are in 3 little small communities there. And I am just super, super blessed to work with a great staff that has a passion for mental health. And I'm just so fortunate. I myself suffer from pretty severe depression and ADHD. And that's, so if I squirrel, you know, just bear with me and know it's, you know, not just me, but my brain. So remember I mentioned about that whole Master's of Theology degree thing. Well, it was a Lutheran seminary in Ohio. And in phase 1 of my adult life, I managed to marry a Lutheran pastor. And instead of electing to become a pastor, I married one and didn't really go on to use my master's of theology much, except that I always thought I was better at being a pastor's wife because I had a little bit of education. I did get very blessed with two beautifully amazing children who are now grown adults and doing very, very well. I grew up as a diehard Lutheran, but after divorcing a Lutheran pastor, I walked away from the Lutheran church and haven't gone back. And then that started my wandering in the wilderness for the next many years. Christianity was so ingrained in me that I felt lost, really, really lost for those few years. And even as a young child, I questioned the tenets and the pat answers of Christianity, but I didn't know what to do with this. Well, then I met this really tall, handsome dude, and he too was on a spiritual journey, and we just connected. We fell in love, we married. That's that blissful marriage thing I was talking about. And I actually was blessed with an additional 4 children with 2 kid-in-laws. So now we have 8 kids, and they are just, what an amazing crew. We have the best time when we can get all of them together, which isn't very often, and even less right now, as y'all have experienced in the pandemic. Shortly after we married, Dan found a job in Florida, picked up and left me. He was gone 6 months ahead of me. I stayed at home until our youngest son graduated from high school, and then I moved from Ohio to Florida to join him. In that time, he was church shopping, trying to find some place where the people walked the talk, did service, contributed to the community, and he walked into a UU church. And he says to me, I think that we're going to like this place, but it's really different. Okay. Well, when all the planets aligned, he left the ranks of university life as a dean and a professor. Remember, he was a dean and a professor when I married him. And he joined the UU world as a minister. Now, I know this intro is supposed to be about me, but what I want to make a point of there is that I divorced a pastor, and now I'm back as a pastor's wife again. So I just want to ask your forgiveness and your kindness as I often blunder through being a pastor's wife. I was really bad at it in my first attempt. And in my second attempt, I'm really going to try to do better. And if you'll offer me that grace and forgiveness, I will do the same. What I do know about this world is that without kindness and without a gentle smile and without a caring hand and without a life lived by grace, we have nothing. And when we do all of those things, that to me has become what spirituality is about, finding the goodness and the heart of other people and being able to bless them and rejoice in their goodness. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for kindly welcoming me into your fold, for caring for my husband as you do, and for being such a very special community where you care for each other. We are just really blessed and grateful to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thanks, babe. That was really terrific. I appreciate you spending so much time on that. And you can see that we clearly need to have her preach some Sunday, because that seminary degree does come out, even though she kind of likes to tempt that back in. So thanks, babe. At this time, we invite you to share joys and concerns that you have in our Book of Life. We use the chat room in Zoom to share those items. If you have a burden that is really weighing you down, something that you would like to release, if you have something wonderful, a piece of great news that you'd like to share with us, this is also the time to do that. So we're going to share an instrumental. This is called Musings on COVID by our music director, Jim Boyle. And during that time, we invite you to write whatever you'd like in the Book of Life to share with the UUFC community at this time. At this time, we invite you to join us in a moment of silence. It's something that we don't practice enough in our current time, or maybe ever. We prefer to fill our life with noise, and the noise drowns out the voice that's deep within inside of us. So each week we take 1 minute to listen to that voice, to lift up the concerns that we have, to get rid of them, let the universe take them, to share the wonderful things, to share that positive energy with the universe as well. So we invite you to have a moment of silence with us. After a minute, you'll hear a ding, and then we will sing together, Spirit of Life. So let's take a moment of silence at this time. Just a reminder at this time that we do continue to receive your offerings and your gifts through your pledges. You can mail those in to the office. You can use the app called Venmo if you have a smartphone to make those donations, or you can have your bank send a regular check to us, as a lot of people do. So we appreciate your continued giving and the fact that we're actually doing pretty well compared to where an awful lot of other congregations are. And because of that, we're able to use your donations to help individuals and families and service organizations in our community. So thank you for that. This season, we get a lot of solicitations for financial donations. There's a lot of need. This year especially, it seems to be very different. It seems to be much worse. And a lot of organizations say, hey, we're coming up to the end of the year. Please make a tax-deductible gift, blah, blah, blah. And it's the season for giving. I happened to get an email last night from one of our favorite places to eat whenever we can go out, called Beef O'Brady's. It's a nice little casual place with good burgers and other little fun things. And in this email, they were so gracious to tell me that they were going to offer things to me. They called it their special season of giving, their 12 days of discounts. And if I come in and spend money, they're going to give me rewards. Not anything tangible, but like money off of future discounts or future food purchases. So their season of giving means giving me a discount. So what is that about? Well, as we continue to center our spirits and set our positive intentions for 2021 by learning about spiritual disciplines, today we focus on the spiritual discipline of giving and serving others. Now, it's true that giving a discount is not exactly an altruistic an act. Clearly, they want me to come in and spend money, and they're trying to lure me in by giving me special seasonal discounts. Now, don't get me wrong, I love discounts, I love coupons, and I love all of that. But to couch that in the language of the spirit of giving clearly doesn't communicate what we talk about when we discuss a spiritual act of service. I'd like you to listen to this teaching that I found recently and think about the philosophy it espouses. Here's the quote. Helping others makes us happy and gives us endorphins. Serving others is good for our mental health, our emotional well-being, and our self-esteem. And the laws of the universe have shown time and time again that those who serve others are more successful themselves. Do you detect any problems or disagreements with that sentiment? Let me read it again. Helping others makes us happy and gives us endorphins. Serving others is good for our mental health. It's good for our emotional well-being and our self-esteem. The laws of the universe have shown time and time again that those who serve others are more successful themselves. If your entire purpose of helping someone else is to make you feel better or so that you can be more successful, you're not actually serving at all. You're manipulating. And that's very, very different. There's an African proverb that goes like this. Help me during the flood, I will help you during the drought. That teaches something very different. It teaches the reality of life. Sometimes we all need help, as the Bill Withers song says. Maybe it's a flood or a drought. Maybe it's a hurricane or a pandemic. Maybe it's a medical procedure or the death of a loved one. Serving others is what we do because we're human. It's how we survive and it's how we help others survive. A Jewish teaching from the Ethics of the Fathers opens with the dictum, "The world stands upon three things, on the Torah, on worship, and upon acts of kindness." Rabbi Lynn Schusterman echoes this teaching in her emphasis on the third pillar, service to others. She says, every act of kindness, whether a small gesture or a global effort, makes a difference and can potentially transform the world. Yet another proverb, this one Filipino, says, if the horse is already dead, more hay will not help it. If the horse is already dead, more hay will not help it. Now, honestly, I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I thought it was an interesting saying. For helping someone to be a true spiritual discipline, it really needs to not be for selfish reasons, such as I'll help them so that they'll help me later, or I need an ego boost, I think I'll go help somebody. But helping others is truly its own reward, and often it brings blessings to people in ways we couldn't imagine. Before Tess and I moved to Florida, as Tess mentioned, we lived near Toledo, Ohio. That's in northern Ohio, just south of Michigan, often where we get an awful lot of snow. After one particularly heavy snowstorm a few years ago, I was out in the driveway myself with a shovel, trying to get more than a foot of snow off of my driveway, including snow drifts. And if you grew up in areas where you get snow drifts, you know how challenging that can be. Well, after being out there for a while and feeling like I wasn't making much progress, a guy in a large truck with a big snow blade on the front slowly drove by and looked at me as he went. And I looked at him and our eyes met. And he backed his truck up, waved at me to get out of the way, and he cleared our entire driveway in less than a minute. He waved at me through his window. We never exchanged words. I have no idea who he is to this day, but he drove away. I was very appreciative for that small act of service, which for him only took a moment, but it saved me hours and probably lots and lots of ibuprofen and maybe a few profanities as well. This is a true act of service. No reward for him. I couldn't share his name with people on social media and say, Bill Smith came and cleared my driveway. But serving others certainly can be a spiritual discipline if we allow it. How does serving others become a spiritual discipline? At the height of the dot-com boom in 1999, a small group of tech-savvy friends walked to a homeless shelter to help out around the shelter without any strings attached. They just wanted to serve, to get out of their offices, to get out from in front of their computers. But they quickly discovered that such a practice of selfless giving is something that we all have access to, no matter who we are or what we do. That trip to the homeless shelter led them to build a website for that homeless shelter at no charge. That moment of giving blossomed into an entire organization that they created called Service Space. It still exists, and it has since developed free websites for thousands of small nonprofits across the world. So that group discovered what many of us know by serving others, and the experience we have serving and the experiences we have when other people help us or serve us. I'd like to highlight a few of these really important spiritual truths that we learn when we do indeed serve from a right place in our heart. First of all, serving helps us discover abundance in the we rather than the me. Serving helps us discover abundance in the we rather than the me. When you serve, you discover that often the most important thing you have to offer are not things at all. You start to uncover the full range of resources at your disposal: time, your presence, your attention, and recognize that the ability to give stems from a state of mind and heart, a place much deeper than the material. Inspired by possibilities, this opens up in every moment you begin to discover humble opportunities to serve everywhere. This process begins a shift from a me orientation to a we orientation. You start to look at people and situations with an eye for what you can offer them and not vice versa. You break the tiresome tyranny of questions like, what's in it for me? The mindset shifts from consumption to contribution. Paradoxically, when we serve in this way, we're no longer operating from a space of scarcity. Our cups fill and overflow because of our own giving. Number two, serving expresses gratitude. When you acknowledge in the fullness of your life that you can manifest a heart of service in any situation, then in that sense, service doesn't start when we have something to give. It blossoms naturally when we have nothing at all left to take. And that is a powerful place to be. We begin to play our part first by becoming conscious of the offerings we receive, and then by feeling gratitude for them. And we pay forward our gifts with a heart of joy. Yes, external change is required for the world to progress, but when coupled with inner transformation, it can affect the world in a radically different way. We can do no great things, says Mother Teresa, only small things with great love. Mother Teresa was a woman who made a difference in the lives of millions of people. It matters what we focus on. In other words, it's not just what we do that matters, but the inner impetus behind our action really counts. Number three, serving transforms the self. Anytime we practice the smallest act of service, even if it's only holding a door for somebody with a full heart that says, may I be of use to this person in this moment, that kind of giving changes the deeply embedded habit of self-centeredness. Even in that brief moment, we experience other-centeredness, and that other-centeredness relaxes the patterns of the ego, a collection of unexamined, self-oriented tendencies that subtly influence our choices. This is why no true act of service, however small, can ever really be wasted. To serve unconditionally in this way takes practice and constant effort. But with time and sharpened awareness, we begin to brush against the potential for transformation that is embedded in every act of generosity. It's a realization that when you give, you actually receive. It's inevitable. You begin to internalize this, not at the intellectual level, but by the very experience of giving itself. Number four, serving honors our profound interconnection. Serving honors our profound interconnection. Over time, all of those small acts, those small moments lead to a different state of being, a state in which service becomes increasingly effortless. And this awareness grows, you inevitably start to perceive beyond individualistic patterns. Each small act of service is an unending ripple that synergizes with countless others. As Rachel Naomi Raymond, a teacher of integrative medicine, put it, when you help, you see life as weak. When you fix, you see life as broken. But when you serve, you see life as whole. With that understanding, we begin to play our part. First, by becoming conscious of the offerings we receive, and then by feeling gratitude for them. And finally, by continuing to pay forward our gifts with a heart full of joy. Each of us has such gifts, skills, material resources, connections, presence, everything we consider ourselves privileged to have. And when we actually start to use those gifts as tools to facilitate giving, we deepen our understanding of relationships and start to sync up with this vast interconnected web of all existence. Number five, serving aligns us with a natural unfolding. Service aligns us with a natural unfolding. When we increasingly choose to remain in that space of service, we start to see new things. The needs of the current situation become clearer. We become instruments of a greater order, and consequently, our actions become more effortless. When a group of people perform this kind of service as a practice, it creates an ecosystem that holds a space, allowing value to emerge organically. All of this indirect value, the ripple effect, has space and time to add up, synergize with other ripples, and multiply into something completely unexpected. In humble fashion, these ripples continue to seed unpredictable manifestations. Such an ecosystem can have its plans and strategies, but places more of an emphasis on emergent co-creation. So a lot of the ripples will remain unseen for years. Some will perhaps be a basis for maybe a seventh generation philanthropy. It doesn't matter because they are unconditional gifts. What each of us can do on a personal level is make such small offerings of service that ultimately create the field for deeper change. The revolution starts with you, with me, with us. I recently read about a woman who had just gotten a new battery on her 360-pound electric wheelchair. That battery turned out to be defective, however, and suddenly as she was going down the sidewalk, it went psst, stopped suddenly, jerked, and threw her to the ground. She was right in front of a church and near a shopping center when this happened. Well, the only person who stopped to see if she was okay was just one person who did assist her back into the chair after she had fallen out. But that person left immediately. The woman was just left sitting there by the roadside, not knowing what to do because her chair wouldn't move. After looking around, eventually a kid came along, a Black teenager, and asked her, "What's happening?" Well, the woman told the story about the battery and how she was just sitting there. And the kid said, "Well, I'll push you home." The lady said she was skeptical at first, and she wondered, well, maybe he'll push me part of the way home and get tired, and then I'll be really stuck someplace that I don't know. But she decided to let him go ahead because he did seem sincere. It was about a half an hour of him pushing the wheelchair. Keep in mind that the battery was dead. The rear wheels on this chair weren't rotating. They were stuck, but he pushed her anyway. 360 pounds of an electric wheelchair that didn't work, plus her own weight, and he pushed her home on his own. He got her to her house, made sure she was okay, said goodbye, and just left. She never did learn his name, where he lived, why he decided to stop and help. He didn't ask for anything. He just left after doing that act of service. That's what the spiritual discipline of serving is all about. Serving brings us closer to the divine by bringing us closer to each other. Even in the midst of a pandemic, you can find safe ways to serve. Keep in mind that serving can be even a phone call just to check on someone. It could be a handwritten letter. Remember handwritten letters? It could be delivering groceries or weeding a garden or crocheting a random minister a new pair of slippers for winter, hypothetically. You're creative enough to come up with some safe serving ideas, or you can use the internet and get lots of ideas from there. This is not the first time that this concept has come up. Regardless, whatever you do, you'll find that the world, your world, our shared world will be a better, happier, and more spiritual place when you do. Amen and blessed be. Lori has our closing words.
Well, I was so lost in that view of the slippers and coming to your door. All right, we'll move to the closing words here. That was great. All right. Closing words for hard times. This is by Maureen Killoran. It was inspired by Choose to Bless the World by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. Reverend Killoran spent 30 years serving UU congregations in Canada and the United States. With the snow-covered mountain in the background, a human hand reaches out and on their bare fingers lightly holds a curious bird. No matter how weak or how frightened we may feel, we each have gifts that we can make a difference in the world, that can make a difference in the world. In this coming week, may you do at least one thing to support the broken, to welcome the stranger, to celebrate what is worthy, to do the work of justice and love. Be strong, be connected, each day act so you may be a little more whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori, for those words. I have several things to share as part of Life of the Community today because we are in our busy season. Even though we're not together physically, the holiday season still brings a lot of exciting activity. Last week, you should have received in the mail an advent calendar, something that we created to give you some fun things to do. And an advent calendar is simply something once a day during the holiday season. You go to a place on the calendar and you look at the activity or the thought that's suggested, and you can act on that. This week, I know some of you, one of the activities was to send a random email to someone in the fellowship you don't know. And I know that some of you did that because I heard about it, and that's really cool. So I hope you can find the Advent calendar helpful and enjoyable during this season. Also, this past week, we finished the first phase anyway of our meditation labyrinth. If you've never used a labyrinth before, it's simply like a big puzzle on the ground. It's in our parking lot, and there's instruction sheets there that tell you how to use it and what to do if you've never used it before. You simply walk the path that's painted on the ground, and you follow the meditation steps if you'd like to. And then you get to the center of the labyrinth where you have a centering activity, and then you walk the path the opposite direction on the way out. We invite you to come and take advantage of this meditation labyrinth. It can be especially helpful if you want to try to get into meditation and you just don't think you can sit still for 20 minutes in silence. This is a great act of meditation where you're up and you're active and you're moving. You're not sitting still. So we invite you to come use it anytime, socially distanced if you're with others or if you bring people with you. We're not going to have like noon on Saturday, everybody come and do the meditation labyrinth. It's the opposite of that. You come on your own time. We did paint it on the parking lot asphalt, and hopefully this could be a permanent fixture that will be here for a very, very long time. And we'll have different tips for meditation each month. So that's up and we invite you to come use it. Also, another holiday activity this coming Saturday from, what did I say, like 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I'm going to be here outside. If you have holiday decorations that you would like for us to put up, we're going to do this outside, not in here, because, you know, it's Mary Jane and I who come in and we can decorate ourselves. But I'd love to do something outside. So if you have a special holiday ornament or a symbol of some type, lights, something that you would love to see put on our landscaping outside in some way, bring that next Saturday between 10 and 3. And then there's a small group of people who are going to come and use those items to decorate our space outside for the holiday season. And then we'll take some pictures and videos and share that so you can enjoy it as well. So what you'll do is you'll just drive in the parking lot. I'll be there with some type of, you know, maybe a pool skimmer so that you're socially distanced as I take it from you. You can put your decoration items there. I'll wave at you and you can drive right on. This is not something where you come and get out of your car and socialize and hang out for a while. It's a drive-through Christmas holiday decoration drop-off event. So, and you'll get an email with more information about that later this week as well. Our Immigration Justice Committee continues to be super, super busy. And one of the things that they are coordinating is working through Toys for Tots to bring some holiday cheer to hundreds of children who are waiting for asylum hearings. If you follow the news at all, you know that these families barred from entering the United States are camped out near the Mexican border. They can't come to the United States because of the stay in Mexico decree by the soon-to-be former president. We are going to continue to accept donations for the next few days for this project. And Toys for Tots, typically you want to bring toys to give unwrapped toys, but this particular project is probably better with money donations, honestly, because the organization has to pay a tariff to Mexico for bringing those things across the border. So if you would like to donate some money to this project, We invite you to mail those checks, put them in the mail today, put IJC Toys for Tots in the memo line, or use the Venmo app, or simply bring your donation here and ring the doorbell and Mary Jane will come get it from you. These kids are in a very difficult situation. And we know that the holidays are a special time. This year, they're going to be hard on all of us. Let's do what we can to brighten up the holidays for these children whose parents are trying to bring them to a better life, to escape violence, to escape poverty. And they're simply waiting at the border in some terrible, terrible living conditions. If we can brighten their holiday season a little bit, let's work together and do that. Also, our UUFCC Racial Justice Committee is coordinating a group to study the Widen the Circle report, which was published last summer. I actually talked about this in a service in July. This published by a group studied institutional change, especially from a racial perspective. And what they're encouraging us to do as a congregation is to look at ourselves and to say, where might we have symptoms of white supremacy that we need to examine and change? And so the Racial Justice Committee is putting together a group of people who would like to take a look at this book, to talk about its implications for us and what we might need to do to follow the recommendations of the report and bring this justice to our own congregation. So if you are interested at all in participating in this group, it's a totally volunteer thing. We aren't really sure where it's going to wind up or what kind of recommendations we have. There's no preconceived ideas. Ginger Abraham is leading that group, so you can email Ginger and say, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to be involved. If you don't know how to get a hold of Ginger, send me an email, minister@uufcc.org, and I'll make sure that information gets to her. That was a lot. There's a lot of really great things going on here. Don't think that because of this pandemic and because we can't meet in person that nothing's happening, or that only Sunday morning at 10:30 is happening, because that's just not the case. Our committees are working, our groups are still working. There's a lot of important ministry and social justice work that's still happening, and it makes my heart overflow with joy. So let's bring the service to a close and extinguish the chalice. Now we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm on our hearts until we are together again. Let's sing together our community benediction, Go Now in Peace.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere.
And now I remind you that as we dismiss, to go and be a blessing to everyone you meet. Be a blessing to the people at the grocery store, in the pharmacy, even people that you might drive by in their cars as you're on the street. Be a blessing to the people that you